Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by taking a little field trip.
Okay.
I want you to walk with me, just, in your mind, into a very specific room in your house.
Mm.
For some of you, it's a real physical room.
Mm.
Maybe it's the spare bedroom, the garage, or, the basement.
Sure.
For others, it's a digital space, like a folder on your desktop, or that one dusty corner of your Google Drive. We're going to the graveyard.
That sounds a little ominous.
It is a little bit.
Yeah.
Because it's the graveyard of good intentions. It's what I call the mental garage.
Yeah.
And you know this place.
I think we all do.
It's where the half-knitted scarves live.
Yes.
It's where that Rosetta Stone language course you bought, 4 years ago?
And opened exactly once.
Exactly once. It's gathering dust. It's where the novel you started writing for NaNoWriMo lies abandoned at, like Chapter 3. It is the place where projects go to die.
And it is a very, very crowded room for most people. I think everyone has a mental garage. And the really tragic thing about this space is that it's not filled with things we didn't give about.
No, not at all.
It's filled with things we loved. We were passionate about them. We wanted to learn French. We really wanted to build that bookshelf. We just stopped.
And that is the absolute worst feeling, isn't it? It's not like you consciously decided, you know what, I don't like this anymore.
Right.
It's that you just sort of drifted away. And that is exactly what we are unpacking today. We are looking at a book that tackles this universal struggle head on.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Finish What You Start: The Art of Following Through, Taking Action, Executing, and Self-Discipline by Peter Hollins.
And I have to be honest, reading this book felt less like reading a manual and a lot more like being personally roasted for 300 pages.
It's a very direct book, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I think Hollins doesn't really buy into the whole idea that following through is some kind of magical personality trait.
Right, that you're either born with it or you aren't.
Exactly. He argues it's a mechanical system. If you aren't finishing things, it's not because you're a lazy person. It's because your gears are stripped. It's a mechanical problem. Before we really get into the mechanics of those gears, though, we have to talk about the story Hollins opens with. Because it really, I think, it sets the stage perfectly for why this is all so hard. He talks about the time he decided to carve a wooden canoe.
Which is such a classic romantic project, isn't it? It sounds so good in theory.
It sounds amazing.
Right.
He has this vision. He's going to be a craftsman. He gets this big block of wood. He gets all the carving tools, the sandpaper. He's going to make a 12-inch replica canoe. Week 1. He is on fire. He's carving. He's shaping it. He can see the form emerging from the wood. And he feels incredible.
Well, that's the dopamine hit of the start. The novelty is sky high. Everything is new and exciting. You're not just, carving a piece of wood.
Right.
You're envisioning the finished product sitting proudly on your mantle.
Yeah.
You're starting to identify as an artist.
Exactly. But then week 2 arrives. The canoe is shaped, but now it needs sanding and more sanding and then polishing. And his hands are cramping up. The dust is just everywhere. It's boring. The novelty is completely evaporated. And now it's just labor.
This is what I call the slog. This is the point where most residents of the mental garage officially move in.
And then the death blow arrives.
Yeah.
A new Star Wars movie comes out.
The ultimate distraction, of course.
The canoe is hard. The canoe is boring. Star Wars is easy. Star Wars is fun. So he puts the canoe down, just for the weekend.
Just for a little break.
Right. He goes to the movies. He sees it twice. And you already know how this story ends. That canoe never gets touched again. It just sits in his garage, half sanded, basically mocking him every single time he walks past it to get into his car.
And that block of wood totally transforms, doesn't it? It stops being this fun, creative project, and it starts being a symbol of shame. It becomes physical evidence of his inability to follow through.
But, and this is why we're talking about this book, he eventually figured it out.
Yeah.
He didn't just beat himself up over it. He didn't just try to, force himself to hate the movie, love the sanding. He used a technique called temptation bundling.
Which is a fascinating concept, which we're definitely going to break down in more detail later. But in short, he hacked his own reward system.
How so?
He made a rule, a very specific rule. He was only allowed to listen to his favorite albums, music he absolutely loved while he was sanding the canoe, and only then.
So he tied the want to the should.
He completely changed the equation. Before, the choice in his brain was sanding, which is pain, versus the movie, which is pleasure.
Right. Easy choice.
But by bundling, the choice became sanding plus music, which is pleasure, versus doing nothing. He bridged that gap between his intention and his reality.
And that is our mission statement for this deep dive. We want to move beyond that vague shaming language of willpower and laziness. We want to look at the psychological and the tactical systems, the actual mechanics that allow you to bridge that exact gap. We want to help you clear out that mental garage.
And to do that, we have to start by defining what following through actually is. Because, as Hollins argues, we usually get this totally wrong. We think it's one thing. We say, oh, I just need more discipline.
Right. I just need to be tougher on myself.
But Hollins says that's way too simplistic. Following through is a composite force. And he uses this great metaphor of a Japanese anime robot, like Voltron or the Megazord from Power Rangers.
I love this visual. You have these separate, mechanical lions or whatever, and they're fine on their own, but they absolutely have to lock together to form the giant robot that can actually fight the monster.
Exactly. And if one part is missing or it's weak, the robot just falls over. It's useless.
Okay, so let's look at this. Let's build the follow-through robot. There are 4 distinct parts, right?
4 parts. Let's start with the first one.
Okay, what is it?
The first part is the head, and this represents focus. The head's job is to keep its eyes on the prize. It makes sure all your effort is concentrated, not scattered.
So if the head is looking at 5 different things at once, if you're trying to write a book and learn Spanish and train for a marathon all at the same time,
the robot gets dizzy and it falls over.
Mm.
The head provides the direction, the trajectory.
Okay, head is direction. What's next?
Next up, you have the spine. The spine is self-discipline. This is all about structural integrity. It's the ability to stay upright and do the work even when you don't feel like it. So when the wind blows, when that new Star Wars movie comes out, the spine is what keeps the robot standing instead of just collapsing.
Okay, so head is direction, spine is the structure that holds it up. What's after that?
Then you have the hands and feet. This is action. This is the visible aspect, the part that actually does something. You can have a brilliant plan from the head and a ton of grit from the spine.
But if you don't move,
you're just a statue. Nothing happens. The hands and feet represent the prioritization of motion, of execution.
And the final piece.
The heart. This is persistence. It's the engine, the power source. It's the tenacity to stick with it when obstacles pop up. The spine keeps you upright, but the heart keeps the blood pumping when the robot gets tired. It's the understanding that this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Focus, discipline, action, persistence. Okay, I want to apply this immediately because the book gives this case study that I think everyone listening has either lived through themselves or watched a friend live through. Let's talk about Esther.
Esther. Yes, the ultimate cautionary tale.
So Esther is working a job she absolutely hates. It's a dull office job, endless paperwork, bad boss, the whole thing.
We've all been there.
Right. And her dream, her burning passion, is to open her own bakery. She's a fantastic baker. Everyone tells her, Esther, your sourdough is unbelievable. You should sell this stuff.
This is what Michael Gerber calls the entrepreneurial seizure. It's the belief that because you're good at the technical work, in this case baking, you should run a business doing that work.
Which aren't the same thing at all.
Not even close.
So she decides to finally go for it. She takes this really bold step. She takes 2 full weeks of vacation time from her job specifically to launch this business. She clears her entire schedule. No boss, no paperwork. Just her and the dream.
This is the critical moment. She has the time. She presumably has the resources. So what does she actually do with it?
Well, she tells herself she needs to prepare. She needs to do research. So she starts looking up tax laws. She researches how to form an LLC. She looks at commercial real estate prices. She even surveys her neighbors about what kind of cookies they like.
Research. It sounds so responsible, doesn't it? So productive.
It does. It feels like you're working. But by the end of those 2 weeks, she hasn't baked a single loaf of bread for sale. She hasn't made $1. She spent 2 weeks organizing her home office and reading articles online.
And then she goes back to her day job.
She goes back to her day job with absolutely nothing to show for it.
So let's look at this through the lens of the robot. Why did Esther fail? What part was missing?
Well, she had the head right. Her focus was clearly on the bakery idea.
Absolutely. The head was there. She knew what she wanted, but she completely lacked the hands and feet. There was zero action.
But wait, she would argue she was acting? She was researching tax law? That's an action.
No, that's motion. There's a huge difference. Action produces a result. Motion is just planning to get a result. Esther used research as a shield. I would actually argue that her spine was the real problem here.
Her self-discipline.
Her self-discipline failed because she was afraid. She was terrified that if she actually baked the bread and tried to sell it, people might say no. Or worse, they might say nothing at all.
So the research was just a safety blanket, a really productive feeling safety blanket.
It was a way to feel like she was moving forward without exposing herself to any risk of failure. By never using her hands and feet, she protected herself. But she also guaranteed she would never finish. She failed because her robot was just a floating head with a wobbly spine.
Wow. That is a brutal diagnosis, but I think it's spot on. And this leads us perfectly into the next section of the book, which explains why we do this. Why do we sabotage ourselves like Esther did? Hollins breaks this down into two big camps: inhibiting tactics and psychological roadblocks.
Right. And it's helpful to think of inhibiting tactics as the how of failure, the specific bad behaviors we engage in. And the psychological roadblocks are the why, the really deep-seated fears that are driving those behaviors.
Okay, let's start with camp one, inhibiting tactics. The very first one he mentions is setting bad goals.
This is a huge one. We tend to set goals that are either wildly abstract or just completely impossible.
Okay, so an abstract goal would be something like, I want to get healthy.
Exactly. It means nothing to your brain. What does that mean? Does that mean running 5 miles, eating kale, sleeping more? When a
Yeah.
goal is abstract, you can't act on it, so you just don't. But the sneakier version of this is the impossible goal.
Give me an example of an impossible goal.
I'm going to become a billionaire in 12 months. Or, I'm going to learn fluent Mandarin by next Tuesday.
But why do we do that? We know it's impossible from the start.
Hollins argues it's a very clever defense mechanism. If I set a goal that is clearly impossible, then when I inevitably fail, I don't have to feel bad about it.
Wow.
I can just say, well, of course I failed. Nobody could have done that. It protects the ego. If I set a realistic goal like, I will learn 50 words of Mandarin this week and I fail at that, well, that hurts. That means I failed.
Wow. So we set ourselves up to fail so we don't have to feel the pain of actually failing. That is so twisted.
Human psychology is often pretty twisted, and the second tactic is exactly what Esther did: productive procrastination.
Oh, I am the king of this. This is when I have a huge deadline, so suddenly it becomes absolutely vital that I reorganize my spice rack.
It's so dangerous because it feels like work. You are busy. You might even be sweating, but you are actively avoiding the one big thing. You are doing low-value work to avoid the high-value, high-fear work. It's resistance wearing a business suit.
And the third tactic is just poor time management, which I feel like is often just optimism gone wrong.
It really is. We have this cognitive bias where we view our future self as some kind of superhero. We think, oh, future me can definitely write that entire report in an hour.
Yeah, future me is amazing. He's so disciplined.
But present me takes 4 hours, gets distracted, and needs a nap. We constantly underestimate the friction of reality.
So those are the tactics.
Yeah.
But let's go deeper. Let's go into camp two, the psychological roadblocks,
Mhm.
the stuff that's happening way down in the subconscious. And the biggest one has to be the fear of judgment and rejection.
This is the story of Laura in the book. Laura is a volunteer fundraiser. She's got a great plan. She knows exactly who she needs to call, but she just sits by the phone and never picks it up.
Because if she doesn't pick it up, nobody can say no to her.
Precisely. Hollins has this one line about Laura that just floored me. He says, she rejected herself so no one else had to.
Oof. Let's say that again.
She rejected herself so no one else had to. Just think about how much safer that feels psychologically. If I don't ask, I can't get rejected. I stay safe in my little bubble.
But you also get zero results.
It's a preemptive strike against your own potential.
And this connects so closely to the next roadblock, which is perfectionism. And I feel like people wear perfectionism like a badge of honor. You know, oh, I'm just such a perfectionist. But Hollins says it's actually a vice.
It's usually just insecurity disguised as high standards. Look at the story of Paul. He wants a promotion. He spends 3 years polishing his resume. He takes extra certifications. He formats the font perfectly. He never, ever submits it. Because as long as the resume is in progress, he can maintain the fantasy that he would get the job if he just applied. But the moment he clicks submit, he faces the reality that he might not be good enough. Perfectionism allows you to hide. It completely freezes the robot's hands and feet because you're terrified of making a wrong move.
And the final roadblock, it's a bit more meta. It's simply a lack of self-awareness.
This is the diagnostic failure. If you don't know why your robot isn't working, you can't possibly fix it. If you think you're just lazy but you're actually completely exhausted.
You'll try to use a WIMP when what you really need is a nap.
Exactly. Or if you think you're bored but you're actually scared, you'll just look for a new shiny project instead of facing the fear in the current one. You have to know what is breaking the robot before you can fix it.
Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. We know about the robot. We know about the self-sabotage. Now I want to get to the solutions. Let's talk about the science of smashing procrastination. And this starts with a concept called time inconsistency.
This is a core concept in behavioral economics, and it basically says that human beings are not one consistent, rational actor. We are, at the very least, two different people living in one body.
We're basically a split personality.
Yes. First, there is the future self. The future self is rational, ambitious, and wants all the long-term rewards. The future self wants to be thin and rich and well-read.
Okay, I know him. And then there's the other guy.
And then there is the present self. The present self is a toddler. The present self wants a donut, a nap, and to scroll through TikTok. And here is the fundamental tragedy of the human condition. The present self is the only one who can actually do anything.
The future self is just a ghost, a
Yeah.
well-intentioned ghost.
Exactly. The future self sets the alarm for 5:00 a.m. But when that alarm goes off, who wakes up? Not the future self. The present self wakes up, hates the noise, and immediately hits the snooze button.
So how do we bridge this gap? How do we get the toddler to do what the adult wants?
We have to stop appealing to the toddler's logic with things like long-term benefits. Toddlers do not care about heart disease in 20 years. They care about candy right now. And this brings us right back to the canoe and temptation bundling.
Right. This is the research from Katie Milkman at UPenn.
Yes, she did this famous study involving the Hunger Games audiobooks. She took a group of people who really struggled to go to the gym. She gave them iPods loaded up with the Hunger Games audiobooks, which were, incredibly popular and addictive at the time.
Hook them on the story first.
Exactly. But there was a rule. They could only listen to the audiobook while they were physically at the gym. The second they left, the audio stopped.
So if they wanted to know what happened to Katniss, they had to get on the treadmill.
Precisely. And it worked beautifully. They bundled a want, which was the story, with a should, which was the exercise. It solves time inconsistency because you are giving the present self an immediate reward, the entertainment, for doing the hard thing. You're basically bribing the toddler.
But is there a danger here? Can you bundle badly? Like if I say I can only eat pizza while doing my taxes, I feel like I might just end up overweight and audited.
Well, yeah, you have to be smart about the bundle. The reward shouldn't completely negate the task. Eating pizza while working out kind of cancels out the benefit.
Right.
But eating, say, one square of a really nice high-end chocolate only while you do your taxes, that works. The key is that the want has to be exclusive to the should. If you cheat and listen to the audiobook in the car, the whole system just breaks down.
Got it. Okay, another strategy Hollins mentions for beating the present self is using small increments to overcome inertia.
Procrastination absolutely thrives on inertia. I mean, the hardest part of physics is getting an object at rest to start moving. Once it's moving, it takes very little energy to keep it going.
And he uses an analogy for this, right? Building a step over a wall.
Yeah, I love this one. If you're standing in front of a 10-foot wall, your brain just shuts down. It says, I can't possibly jump that. So you don't even try. But what if you just look for one rock? Just one small rock. Okay. And you place it at the base of the wall, then you find another and another. Eventually, you have a pile of rocks that's high enough to just step right over the wall.
So instead of write the novel, the rock is open the laptop.
Even smaller. The first rock might just be sit down in the chair or write one single sentence. The goal is to lower the barrier to entry so ridiculously low that the present self can't possibly say no to it. I'm just going to write for 2 minutes is completely non-threatening.
And once you start, you usually keep going.
You build momentum.
There's a specific tactic here that I found really counterintuitive at first. He suggests leaving the last 5% of a task undone at the end of the day.
This is a brilliant hack for the next day's inertia.
But wait, doesn't that violate the whole finish what you start philosophy? I mean, I want that dopamine hit of clicking save and closing the file for the day.
It sounds totally contradictory, but hear me out. If you finish a chapter completely, what do you have to do the next morning?
Start the next chapter.
Which means starting with a blank page. A blank page is terrifying. It's pure high-friction resistance. You don't know where to start, so you procrastinate. But what if you stop mid-sentence or even mid-paragraph?
Then I know exactly what comes next.
You know exactly what comes next. You can sit down, and the first thing you do is finish that sentence. That is an easy win. It's a low rock. And that easy win gives you the momentum to write the next paragraph and the one after that. You are intentionally parking on a downhill slope so you can clutch start the car in the morning.
That is actually really, really smart. It's sacrificing a little bit of satisfaction tonight for a much easier start tomorrow.
Exactly. It keeps the thread of the robot's action unbroken.
Okay, let's move to section 4, the manifesto. This sounds so grand and political, but Hollins means it on a very personal level.
A manifesto is simply a set of rules, and the reason we need rules is to save our spine, our self-discipline.
Because the spine gets tired. Willpower isn't infinite.
Willpower is a battery. Every single decision you make drains it. Should I wear the blue shirt or the red one? That's a little drain. Should I have eggs or cereal for breakfast? Another drain.
Mm-hmm.
So when you get to the big one, should I go to the gym, and you have to debate yourself every single time, you will eventually lose that debate because your battery is dead.
So a rule just removes the debate entirely.
A rule says, I work out on Tuesdays. Period. There's no debate. There's no decision to make. You just execute. It saves all your willpower for the actual workout itself.
Hollins gives us some specific rules we can put in our personal manifesto. The first one is the 10-10-10 rule.
This is a great tool for forcing the present self to look into the future. When you are on the verge of doing something stupid, like skipping the gym or eating an entire cake, you stop and you ask yourself 3 questions. First, how will I feel about this in 10 minutes?
Okay.
Second, how will I feel in 10 hours? And third, how will I feel in 10 days?
Let's play this out. I want to diet. I'm staring at a giant, delicious slice of chocolate cake. How do I feel in 10 minutes?
You feel amazing. The sugar is hitting your bloodstream. It was delicious. The present self is giving you a high five.
Okay, 10 hours.
The sugar crash has hit. You feel bloated. And you feel that first little pang of guilt. You broke a promise you made to yourself.
And 10 days.
The pleasure of the cake is a distant memory. You can't even taste it anymore. But the calories are still on your body. The setback to your goal is real. When you force your brain to look at that 10-day horizon, the 10-minute pleasure suddenly looks like a really bad trade.
It effectively calls the present self's bluff.
It creates a time telescope so you can see the consequences that are normally hidden from view.
Okay, I have to challenge this next rule because it sounds like a cheap trick that my own brain would see right through. It's the just 10 minutes rule.
It is a trick, but it's a trick that works on a very specific, very primitive part of your brain.
So the idea is, if I'm on the treadmill and I want to quit, I tell myself, okay, I'll quit, but in 10 minutes. I know I'm lying to myself. I know I'm just trying to extend the torture. Why on earth does the brain buy this?
Because the part of your brain that wants to quit, the toddler, has zero concept of the future. It only understands now and not now. When you say, I'm never going to quit, the toddler has a full-blown tantrum because it sees an eternity of suffering. It panics.
So when I say never, the toddler just riots.
Exactly. But if you say, you can have what you want, just not right this second, wait 10 minutes, the toddler calms down. It thinks the relief is coming soon. It's a negotiation.
So you're basically negotiating a truce with your own brain.
You're surfing the urge. Most discomfort, whether it's the urge to smoke or the urge to stop writing, it comes in a wave. It builds, it peaks, and then it crashes. If you can just delay for 10 minutes, you usually ride that wave down the other side. The urge dissipates.
And I guess in the context of work, 10 minutes is usually enough time to get back into a flow state.
That's the huge secondary benefit. Usually by minute 8, you've re-engaged with the task, you've found a new little problem to solve, and you completely forget you even wanted to quit. You've tricked yourself into persistence.
The last part of the manifesto is reaffirming intentions. This is the I want, I will, I won't framework.
This is all about identity and clarity.
Yeah.
It's so simple. You just write down, I want, which is the ultimate goal. For example, I want to be a published author.
Okay.
Then I will, which is the required action. I will write 500 words every morning. And finally, I won't, which is the sacrifice. I won't watch TV before 8 p.m.
I really like that I won't part. We usually focus on what we will do, but we rarely acknowledge what we have to give up to get it.
Every choice is a trade-off. If you don't acknowledge the sacrifice, you'll end up resenting it when it happens. By writing, I won't, you are accepting the price of the goal up front. You're making it real.
Let's shift gears to the environment. Section 5. Focus, distraction, and environment. We can have all the rules in the world, but if our environment is actively fighting us, we're going to lose. And Hollins goes hard on multitasking here.
He does. And he uses Sophie Leroy's research on attention residue to do it. And this concept, I have to admit, it terrified me when I first read about it.
Attention residue. It sounds sticky.
It is sticky. Leroy found that when you switch from task A to task B, your attention doesn't just snap over instantly like a light switch. A residue of your cognitive focus remains stuck on task A.
So if I'm writing a report And I quickly check an email that just came in.
Your eyes are on the email, but a significant chunk of your brain is still processing the report. And then when you go back to the report, a chunk of your brain is still stuck on the email. How should I reply to that? Was the tone of that email a little passive-aggressive?
So I'm effectively making myself stupider every time I switch.
You are operating with a fraction of your real cognitive capacity. And if you rapid switch, email, Slack, text, work, email again, you end up with so much residue that you can't think deeply about anything at all. You're just skimming the surface of everything.
He also mentions that Stanford's study with the red and blue rectangles. This one really just busted the myth of the super multitasker.
Oh, this study was brutal. A researcher named Clifford Nass took people who self-identified as high multitaskers. You know, the people who say, I'm great at juggling, I can watch TV and type and text all at once.
Right.
He compared them to low multitaskers. He showed them images of red and blue rectangles and gave them a very simple instruction. Ignore the blue ones. Just count the red ones.
And logically, you'd think the multitaskers would be better at that, right? They're used to filtering out noise.
That's what everyone thought. But the high multitaskers were significantly worse at it. They couldn't ignore the blue rectangles. Their brains kept getting distracted.
Wait, they were worse. Not just the same, but worse.
Much worse. And it turns out that multitasking isn't a skill you get better at. It's a bad habit that literally damages your brain's ability to focus. These people had trained themselves to pay attention to everything. They'd actually lost the ability to filter what's important from what isn't. Their brains were treating every stimulus, every single blue rectangle as equally important.
That is genuinely terrifying. Because in a modern office, the blue rectangles are the Slack notifications, the email pings, and all the open browser tabs.
And if you're a chronic multitasker, your brain starts treating a random Slack emoji with the same biological urgency as the multi-million-dollar client report you're trying to write. You become chemically incapable of proper prioritization.
So if our brains are basically broken, we have to fix the environment instead. This brings us to the Hershey's Kiss study.
A very simple but incredibly powerful study from Cornell. Researchers put chocolate kisses in 3 different spots in an office. On the desk in a clear jar, on the desk in an opaque jar, and on a shelf about 6 feet away.
As results,
When the chocolate was visible and within arm's reach, people ate an average of 7.7 chocolates a day. When it was moved just 6 feet away, so you actually had to stand up to get one consumption dropped to 3.1.
just 6 feet of distance cut the bad habit by more than half. That's it.
Yes. Because it introduced friction. When the chocolate is right there on the desk, eating it is an automatic, mindless action. When it's 6 feet away, you have to make a conscious choice. Do I really want to get up for this? That split second of friction allows the prefrontal cortex, the adult, to intervene and say, maybe not.
Hollins calls this designing the path of least resistance.
We are like water. We flow where it's easiest. If you want to stop checking your phone constantly, don't just rely on willpower. Put the phone in another room. Make it annoying to get to. If you want to floss, put the floss directly on your pillow so you literally have to move it to go to sleep.
You're designing your laziness to work for you instead of against you.
Exactly. Make the right thing the easiest thing.
There's one more tool in this section that I absolutely love, the don't-do list.
We all have our to-do lists, but a don't-do list is often more crucial for maintaining focus. Hollins suggests 3 categories for this list.
Okay, what are they?
First, tasks that are waiting on other people. If you've sent the email and are waiting for a reply, stop thinking about it. Write it on the don't-do list and flush it from your mental RAM.
Get it out of your head.
Second, busy work. This is the low-value stuff we do to feel productive. Reformatting the spreadsheet. Searching for the perfect stock photo for the presentation. Put it on the don't-do list so you catch yourself when you start drifting towards it. And third, tasks with diminishing returns.
This is that 90% as 100% trap again, isn't it?
Yes. Often, getting a project from 90% done to 100% perfect takes as much time and energy as the first 90%. Perfection is incredibly expensive. Unless you're building a bridge or performing brain surgery, 90% is often done. So, put perfecting the font choice on slide 27 on your don't-do list, ship the 90% version, and move on.
Moving on to section 6. Mindsets. We're talking about the mental operating system here. The first mindset is learning to find comfort with discomfort.
This is the story of Gerald in the book. Gerald wants to be an entrepreneur. He wants the glory, the money, the Steve Jobs turtleneck. But he quits the second he realizes it involves cold calling strangers and not knowing if he's going to be able to pay his rent next month.
He wanted the outcome, but he didn't want the process.
He interpreted that discomfort the fear, the awkwardness, as a signal that something is wrong here. But the huge mindset shift is to realize that discomfort is not a red light, it's actually a green light.
How do you mean?
Growth only happens outside your comfort zone. If you are comfortable, you are stagnating. If you feel awkward and stressed and a little bit out of your depth, you are probably learning something new. You have to reframe that tight feeling in your chest, not as fear, but as growing pains. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
The next mindset is the 40-70 rule, which comes from Colin Powell. This is a framework for decision-making.
I love this one for chronic overthinkers and perfectionists. Powell's rule was this: if you have less than 40% of the information you need, don't act. You're just guessing. You're shooting from the hip.
Okay, makes sense.
But, and this is the key part, if you wait until you have more than 70% of the information, you've waited too long.
You've missed the window of opportunity.
You are paralyzed by analysis. The sweet spot is between 40 and 70%. You have enough information to make an educated guess, and then you have to trust your intuition and your ability to course correct along the way to handle the rest.
It frees you from the impossible need for certainty.
Certainty is a myth. You will never have 100% of the info. The 40-70 rule gives you permission to pull the trigger and get the hands and feet of the robot moving.
And how do we keep motivation high through all of this? Hollins talks about staying hungry, and he cites a really weird study, the Toy Story Alien study.
This is another Katie Milkman gem.
Oh.
She wanted to see how to help people remember to do a simple task. In this case, it was just picking up some paper clips at the end of an experiment. One group got a standard reminder note. The other group was told that their paper clips would be waiting for them by a little statue of an alien from Toy Story.
Why an alien? That's so random.
Because it's weird. And the alien group was significantly more successful at remembering. The takeaway is all about salience. Our brains are designed to ignore the mundane. We stop seeing that yellow sticky note on the monitor after about 2 days. It just fades into the
It
background.
becomes wallpaper.
But a little green alien, that stands out. To keep your motivation fresh, you need novelty. You need weird visual cues. If you want to remember to go to the gym after work, don't just write gym on your calendar. Put your running shoes in the refrigerator.
On the refrigerator.
Seriously.
Seriously. When you open the fridge to get milk and you see a running shoe, your brain goes, what? It jolts you out of your autopilot. And that jolt is exactly what you need to break the inertia and remember your intention.
Finally, we arrive at section 7, which feels like the summary of the whole philosophy. Systems over willpower.
It absolutely is. Hollins tells the cautionary tale of Ned. Ned was a grinder. He ran his whole business on pure brute force. 12-hour days, remembering every single client detail in his head, just forcing himself to push through fatigue.
The hustle culture hero. And he crashed. Hard. Because willpower is a biological resource. It's a muscle that gets tired. You cannot redline an engine forever. It will eventually blow up. Ned's business failed because he didn't have systems. He just had a lot of effort.
Hollins introduces the concept of transaction costs here to explain what systems actually do.
We touched on this with the Hershey's Kisses. A system is anything that alters the transaction cost of a behavior. If you want to run in the morning, a system is sleeping in your running clothes. You have lowered the transaction cost of going for a run to almost zero. You just have to put on shoes.
And the opposite.
If you want to stop watching so much TV, a system is hiding the remote control's batteries in the basement. You have dramatically raised the transaction cost of watching TV.
So it's about not relying on the spine, the self-discipline to do all the heavy lifting all the time.
Exactly. This connects right back to our robot. If you have great systems in place, strong hands and feet, you don't need a super strong spine. You don't need to be a disciplined monk to go for a run if you're already wearing your shoes when you wake up. Systems make discipline redundant.
Another system he talks about is scoreboards.
Gamification. It's so simple, but it works. We're just wired to care about numbers going up. The comedian Jerry Seinfeld used to mark a big red X on a calendar every single day he wrote a new joke. His only goal was don't break the chain. Seeing that visual streak of X's creates a psychological cost to quitting. You don't want to ruin that pretty pattern you've made. It turns the drudgery into a game you don't want to lose.
And the final system, which I think is my favorite, is strategic doing nothing.
Wait, I thought you said you were skeptical of this one earlier.
I am. It sounds like a perfect excuse. Oh, I'm not being lazy. I'm just strategically doing nothing. How is this actually a valid strategy?
It's valid because of brainwaves. When you are focusing really hard, that's high beta waves, you are burning a lot of energy. You are narrowing your focus down to a pinpoint. But creativity, synthesis, and those big picture aha moments happen in alpha waves, and alpha waves happen when you are
This
relaxed.
is the shower principle, right? You get your best ideas in the shower.
Exactly, or on a long walk, or while you're doing the dishes. If you are constantly grinding in beta mode, you never give your brain a chance to access alpha mode. You need recovery, not as a reward for hard work, but as a mechanical maintenance cycle. If you don't recharge the battery, the robot eventually just shuts down. So, strategic doing nothing isn't skipping work, it's letting your subconscious process the work.
So let's bring it all home. We've built the robot focus, discipline, action, persistence. We've written the manifesto. We've designed the environment. We've installed the systems.
And if you look at all of that together, the core truth of the book really emerges. Finishing isn't about being a better person. It's not about changing your fundamental DNA. It's about acting as an architect. You design a life where quitting is hard and starting is easy.
You take the choice away from the toddler.
Precisely. You parent yourself through well-designed systems.
I want to leave everyone with one final and slightly provocative thought from the book. Hollins talks about something called false hope syndrome.
This is the real danger zone. He asks us to really check ourselves and ask, are we addicted to the feeling of setting a goal?
What do you mean by that?
Well, when you say, I'm going to write a book, your brain releases a little bit of dopamine. You feel good. You feel accomplished. You feel like an author. You get the high before you've written a single word.
It's like you're borrowing glory from a future that doesn't exist yet.
And for so many people, that initial high is enough. They get the dopamine hit, and then they abandon the project as soon as the actual work, the sanding, starts. They are addicted to the start because the start feels like the finish, but without any of the effort.
So the real challenge to you, the listener, is this. Catch yourself. Are you just enjoying the dream of the canoe? Or are you willing to actually sand the wood?
Stop dreaming about the canoe. Pick up the sandpaper.
On that note, thank you for diving deep with us. Go clear out that garage. We'll see you next time.